Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. This week, I have Raymond with us. I'm super excited to introduce him to you. So with that said, Raymond, take a second to say hello to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Tony. Appreciate it.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you. So if you wanted to go ahead and start us off with a one-word open and, let us know what that one word is to open things up, and we'll get right into the interview.
Appreciative of the fact that you reached out to me. I was just minding my own business, and then you pinged me and said, would you like to come on? So I'm honored.
Very cool. Same here. So with that said, if you want to take a second to share with us what you do, what kind of impact you make on a day-to-day, that way our audience is right there with us, that would be great.
Yeah. So our company, Clinical Research IO, or CRIO, CRIO, we are in the technology space for clinical research trials. And so I think everyone can appreciate, especially recently with the pandemic, how important clinical trials are. What we had with the vaccines was unprecedented levels of speed to market. But typically, it takes a medication 10 years before it gets approved, and 90% of the trials fail to produce a positive result. So it's an extremely expensive endeavor. And what our goal at CRIO is to simplify that, compress that time, improve the quality of the data while we're at it, and just make clinical research much more effective. So what we have is we have a comprehensive software solution aimed at principal investigators, who are the doctors that are leading the research efforts, to collect data electronically instead of using paper charts or other less efficient means of collecting data.
Awesome. Thank you very much for giving us that high-level overview. Can you share with us a recent win, something that that you consider a win and it's important to you, and also what you learned from it?
Yeah, we got started in 2016, and when we first started this concept of electronic source, which is what we call this category of software, we had a big uphill battle. I personally, having been on the client side of things, having been involved in a clinical research site, in fact, having owned and operated a clinical research site, I knew the space, but I also knew how conservative and risk averse it is to change, being a highly regulated industry. So to make the case and being very lean, I personally cold called hundreds of clinical research sites. It was tough going, a lot of education, a lot of having to reframe people's conceptions, a lot of having to prove to people that this was an acceptable approach, and a lot of churn, a lot of experimentation. Now, fast forward 4 or 5 years, our category of software is now established. A lot of clinical researchers that we speak to are no longer asking, why would I adopt electronic source? A lot of them are asking, when am I going to? When's it going to be the right time to do it? I know it's just a matter of timing now. So that's been a huge win. Most recently, we secured the business of one of the largest research site networks in the world, probably certainly a top 5 network in size. And so to see us go from 5 years ago, literally dialing for dollars, taking anybody we could get, to going right to the pinnacle and getting the top tier enterprise clients to sign up, that's been intensely gratifying. And it did take us a while to do that. It was definitely a slog for a couple of years.
Excellent. How about a recent failure? So what was something that happened recently that you would consider a failure? And also, what did you learn from it?
Every time we lose a client to a competitor, we try to learn from that. What I've learned is that you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. I don't necessarily consider a failure if we lose a client to another competitor, another vendor that's a better fit for them. So what I've learned is that you got to start with what the needs of the clients are. And every client's got a different set of requirements, a different approach, different worldview. And we may not be the best fit. And if we're not the best fit, honestly, it's better that they don't go with us. It's better they go with someone else, because what we don't want is a client that picks our software, it doesn't work out, and then what do you have? You have an unhappy client. They're going to leave you anyway, and now they're going to go out and tell someone else that it wasn't a good experience. So some of that's unavoidable in the software space or in any type of industry. What I've learned is that I'd rather have 5 happy clients than 10 clients of varying degrees of happiness.
That's really awesome. I couldn't agree with you more because I heard it the other day too. Another person was mentioning, I think they're talking about on the macro, like thousands of clients, and this person stopped. On Clubhouse, and this person just said, "I'd rather have 100 clients that are happy instead of 5,000 that are gonna not. You can't please 5,000 people. It just doesn't work that way." So I totally get what you're saying.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, we invest significantly. I mean, for me, the North Star is client satisfaction because 80% of our business now comes from client referrals.
Awesome. If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 21-year-old self?
To chill out, not to be too anxious. I knew when I was 21 that I probably was going to go the entrepreneur route, but I didn't feel emboldened to do that. I felt like I had to be on a prestigious, glorious professional track. And I was never really true to myself until about 10 years ago, when I finally made the resolution at right around the age of 39, 40. I made the resolution I'd rather, die having tried than keep going with a set of career interests that may have met other people's expectations. But ultimately, I wasn't being true to myself. So when I finally made the decision to become an entrepreneur, all in, and not care so much about the outcome, but more about the journey, that was a big realization on the turning point. But really, I just had to jump in and be an entrepreneur, and I haven't looked back. It's what I was meant to be.
Awesome. Thank you. And for those entrepreneurs listening right now, if they are trying to have one takeaway when they're listening, they just want to, because a lot of the listeners, generally speaking, will have like, okay, what's my one takeaway, right? And then they have like a notepad or something to just kind of keep on their notes on their computer. So in this episode, if you could give that entrepreneur one tip, like one takeaway, what would you give them?
I wish I knew. There's no straightforward path. I mean, I've had a notebook full of ideas for the longest time, a lot of false starts. I had a few failures, a few brushes with bankruptcy. There are no guarantees, and it can be pretty frightening. I think the one piece of advice I would focus on is get paying clients. Your family doesn't count, your friends don't count, advisors don't count. I don't even think pilots count. Get a real client that's paying. Doesn't matter how big they are, how small they are, how much they are. If they're paying money out of pocket and the amount they're spending is meaningful to them, then you've got a real solution to a real problem.
Well said, because people vote with their wallets, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. People say all day long that it's a great concept, but are they actually going to be willing to spend their own money on it? I think that's where the rubber hits the road.
Absolutely. What about if there was one question that you wish that I would ask you and I didn't ask you, what would you like that question to be right now?
Oh, no, I don't. I can't think of anything, honestly.
No? Okay, no worries. How about like if there's whenever you're talking and someone comes to you, whether it's an employee or a friend or you give a speech, people ask like the common questions, right? But do you think there's one question they should ask you about what you do that no one really asks, and you think they should have asked you?
I think one thing I think a lot of entrepreneurs should realize is that not only is it a long journey, not only is it high risk and prone to failure and all of that, but there comes a point in a company's life. Let's say you are fortunate and you do have product market fit and the company starts to grow. A lot of entrepreneurs need to ask themselves, can I scale with a company, right? Because the set of challenges are very different. I personally had about a 15 to 20 year corporate career before becoming an entrepreneur. And so now that our company is hitting the fast growth stage, a lot of what I learned before is now applicable. So when I left the corporate world and became an entrepreneur, I had to learn a lot about how to do things as a person of one with no corporate resources. Had to learn how to be scrappy. But now that the company that we have is starting to get traction, I feel like I can leverage a lot of the tools that I learned in a corporate career. So I definitely don't believe in the hype of the mythology around the 20-something-year-old entrepreneur. I do think that being an entrepreneur, you can definitely start later in life, and you can leverage an experience career that you have, and take what you learn in a corporate setting and then apply it. I think I've seen a lot of successful entrepreneurs follow that model.
Awesome. Thank you very much. How could people find out? How could people find out more information? If you want to give out your website address, that'd be great.
Yeah, go to www.clinicalresearch.io, and you can email me, Raymond@clinicalresearch.io.
Excellent. And if you could sign us off with a one-word close, Raymond, what would that be and why?
To say thanks, peace. It's the weekend.
Perfect. Thank you again. Thanks for coming on the show. Looking forward to talking with you in the future.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.